Tenet is directed by Christopher Nolan, and it is his latest film, starring John David Washington and Robert Pattinson, among many others. Armed with only one word, Tenet, and fighting for the survival of the entire world, a protagonist journeys through a twilight world of international espionage on a mission that will unfold in something beyond real time. This is probably the biggest tentpole release to hit theatres since the coronavirus pandemic restrictions have been loosened here in the UK. Is it worth your time? Is it worth going out to a movie theatre to see? Let's find out. So to start things off, it goes kind of without saying really that Christopher Nolan is obviously one of the best and widely beloved directorial talents out there right now. Obviously, he directed the Dark Knight trilogy, as well as Inception, Memento, The Prestige, and I've always really enjoyed his work, and really been excited for when new Christopher Nolan movies come out. On Tenet, I didn't do much of the background reading that I usually do with Christopher Nolan movies, just because I wanted to kind of go in a bit blank. And with the coronavirus pandemic, obviously I wasn't following movies as much during that period because of the uncertainty about release dates and everything happening there. So I went into Tenet quite blind, and I'm not sure whether that helped me or hindered me in my enjoyment of the film. I love going into movies with very little knowledge of what's going to happen, but as you've heard from many other people, Tenet is a very plot-heavy, science-driven film, or at least pseudo-science-driven film. You've obviously got this beyond real-time aspect, and I won't be spoiling too much of that. I will flag up if I do. But for me, it is Christopher Nolan swinging hard at punches, and I love when he does that. I love Inception, where he's not treating the audience as an idiot, and he expects them to obviously follow along with a very fast-paced, very exposition-heavy film, and he does this here too. He doesn't at any point dumb it down. He never expects the audience to want the movie to slow down, to take a moment and just lay out its rules clear as crystal day. You do have to keep up with it solidly. And I always think that's when Christopher Nolan is at his best, when it's plot-driven movies, heavy on the lore, and heavy on the science. I wasn't a big fan of Dunkirk. I thought it was more spectacle over plot or characters, and this is Christopher Nolan doing what he does best for me. This is as well obviously one of those movies that is big on action, and it's fantastically directed action, as Nolan is just known for doing. He does clear the lighting up quite well. It's not as dark as obviously stuff like the Dark Knight trilogy and elements of Inception. It probably doesn't reach the peak of, say, the hallway fight in Inception, but it does really inventive stuff with the core concept of the film and the time element that Christopher Nolan has to deal with. There are action scenes obviously from the trailer, like the car chase. You see that from one perspective, and then you come back and see it from a completely different perspective, and just the directorial talent that has to go into an action scene like that, everyone involved in the action in this movie really drags you in. It's well directed, obviously goes without saying, and really engrossing action movie. Just to talk a little bit about the stars of the film, obviously the main ones are John David Washington and Robert Pattinson. John, as the protagonist, the main character in the film, does a really solid job. He's obviously supposed to be detached. He's not the protagonist. His name in the credits is the protagonist. So you do get a little bit of dissonance from him because you don't have a name and much of a personality for him. I didn't feel. But then on the flip side, Robert Pattinson in this movie as Neil is such an advertisement for the Batman. Obviously, he's working on that movie coming up with Matt Reeves as the titular Batman. And obviously, a lot of people in the past have been, oh, why is the sparkly vampire dude from Twilight going on to play the Batman? This will put all of those fears to rest. He is a confident actor with very dramatic pieces, and he's a great action star. Fight scenes that he is in is perfect. And obviously the main villain, not to spoil too much, Kenneth Branagh is playing a Russian tyrant out to cause our protagonist a lot of issues, and he is really, really chewing the scenery in everything he's in. He's proper Russian gangster man. Excuse my very poor accent, but everyone in the cast is very, very solid, especially Elizabeth Debicki, who is the heart and soul of the movie, really. A lot of the main drive behind our character interactions come from Debicki's character, and she really sells her position within the movie perfectly. Now, just to move on to a few of the negatives, because I do have them, the principal one being how the sound is mixed. So, obviously, as I said before, it's a very exposition-heavy movie, and there are a lot of moments within the movie where they're trying to give exposition to the audience, especially about the core concepts of the film, but it's just drowned out by the background noise, the music, and the score. And when you're asking an audience to pay attention throughout, no dialogue needs to be missed. And when you're asking an audience to come for a Christopher Nolan ride, where they'd never ever slow down to treat the audience like an idiot, you've really got to let every bit of dialogue sit properly. And for me, in a lot of moments, as with many other critics, I couldn't hear what was going on. So that is probably the biggest issue in the movie. Moving on to some others, as I've said previously, John David Washington's character is a little bit 2D in of himself. He is motivated by the character interactions of others, principally, in my opinion. But we don't get an idea of who the protagonist is, which I can kind of expect was Nolan's intention. So just to sum up, this is Nolan at his best, or at least his most adventurous with core concepts and directing. The movie is really, really enjoyable for the most part, but obviously, as I said, in little elements, you're kind of left in the dark as a result of the sound mixing. A lot of the dialogue maybe doesn't quite reach the audience in the way it was intended. So, Tenet isn't one of Christopher Nolan's best movies, not by a long shot, but I love when a director like him really swings and maybe in places misses. So, for me, it was probably a solid 8 out of 10. What about yourselves? Have you seen Tenet? What are you thinking? What are your expectations? Are you going to be going to the cinema to see it? I will be back with reviews of such stuff like the Netflix movie Enola Holmes, and probably I will like to take a look at The Boys Season 2, at least what we have on Amazon at the moment. So let me know, let's have a conversation about Tenet, and I will speak to you all later.